All right, everybody, welcome to a Tuesday episode of Locked On Avalanche. This is going to be fun. I'm going to see how fast my mute finger is. If you hear the voice, it's a little bit, under the weather. But lots to talk about today with the Avalanche. So we couldn't take another day off. I couldn't take another day off because we have a rookie camp to talk about. We'll get to that. Cale Makar with some pretty bold words for Hockey Canada and not a lot of players of his caliber kind of saying the things that he said. We'll talk about that. And newly minted Avalanche Evan Rodrigues has picked his number, and a lot of duct tape is going to get used. We'll talk about all that and more. Locked On Avalanche. Let's get to it.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I own Matt Duchene jerseys, but I've never done the duct tape thing before. And maybe I'll do it just for, a fun time, but for a day or two, but I don't think I can do that. Like, I don't have as much angst as against Matt Duchene as like a lot of people do, but this is going to happen. So we will talk about that and more. First things first, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Follow us on social media outlets, LOP and _Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. So we will start with hockey. Actual on-ice hockey. The Avalanche rookies, rookies and prospects all got together for their annual rookie camp. This was in San Jose. Avalanche, their 3 games, they won 2 of them and lost 1. The one was in pretty ugly fashion. What was that, 5-1, I think?
Yeah.
Against the 4
The Sharks.
Sharks was 5-1. And the other 2, take what you want out of this thing. I know people get excited about the rookie camp. I think mainly because it's just hockey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the first thing that we get after a off season. But the caliber of play is clearly not there. I don't think people are really going to look at anybody and be like, oh my God, he completely set himself apart and lock him into an Avalanche roster. I get why people get excited about this, and I do to an extent. And then when you watch it, you're like, okay, yeah, like this is almost like it's not as bad as like the Hall of Fame game in the NFL, but I don't know. Like, I get excited for it, and then you start watching the first game, and you're like, okay, well, at least we get some hockey here.
I was having this conversation with somebody the other day about watching like camp and hockey preseason, and it's all about like the way you watch it. Because watching the games as much as I did, I picked out a lot of things that stood out to me,
Mhm.
and it wasn't so much like you're not watching a hockey game, you're watching the sum of its parts.
Yeah,
And with what I saw with like Myers looked good, Foodie looked really good.
yeah, he did.
It's when you see them working together, and of course we know how deep the Avalanche are when it comes to prospect and youth and like they're rookies, but then you see them matched up against another team like the Kings. Like Quentin Byfield was out there for goodness sake, and they still looked good, and their passes were very crisp and popping, and they were really good at the offensive transition, and there were a lot of things that I honestly, the score does not matter to me. It's indicating goalie play. It's
Yeah,
not so much a team play. And what I saw out of the Avalanche, it was promising. That San Jose game felt weird the whole way through. The Arizona game, I did not get to see much of that because I was at work. But when you look at the stat line, I mean, Olauson's having himself a nice little rookie
yeah,
camp. So
yeah.
this is the kind of things that you're wanting to see coming out of these camps, and you just got to understand. Yeah, it's good to see hockey in motion, but let's not start screaming we're running it back. And
No, like I said, like there's guys that you want to see, and I'm obviously a big Jean-Luc Foodie fan. Like, I definitely want to see him, and he performed.
Mhm.
Seems like he might be that. This is what you're looking for. Like, okay, who's maybe like taking that next step?
Yeah.
But you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because who they're going up against on the other side, I don't know a lot of these guys. I don't know where, like the big name, like you said, Quentin Byfield and stuff like that. Them, but there's some guys that are on the fourth line playing for the Avalanche that I don't really know much
Yeah.
about. So I've no for fourth line for the Coyotes, no clue. And I'm not saying Foodie's going up against those guys, but you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like, yeah, he did good. And okay, so he should do good because he's been in the mix now for a few years. So you like to see that. Alex Bukaj is another guy who so much kind of like where he's played, he's really done well. It just hasn't translated yet.
Yeah.
But you want to see it from him. Oscar Olauskin, obviously a guy that you're going to want to see. Myers, guys like that. Who they're going up against, if it's not like the best of what the other opponent has, it might be skewed a little bit. But hey, that's good for their confidence. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're out there, they're skating, they're playing well, they're playing their game, and does that carry over into training camp? We will see. One area where this Avalanche team struggled mightily in all three games was the power play.
Yeah.
And it's just, and again, this was where like the Avalanche would struggle themselves starting a regular season, but it was just ugly at times. Like they struggle, like just a basic cross ice pass was
Yeah.
just getting passed out of the zone. You know what I mean? So it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, where like you get excited and then you see like things like that, and you just are like, oh my God, like what are you doing, guys?
And like the power play, I'm so happy you brought that up. Like that was something that I was like, oh, they're going to fit right in with this the Avalanche, like with this power play ability. And another thing to really look out for, like those Avalanche fans that are playing the long game, like when we're sitting down here and we're arguing till we're blue in the face about Georgiev and Pavel Francouz, those that take that third option and say, well, we still have Eustace in the system. You got to see him against the Kings. And then you get to see Trent Miner, which that was not the greatest performance. But then you get to see what the goalies also look like. If Georgiev and Frankie end up being a wash or canceling each other out, or one guy goes down, who's the next one up? I know we have JoJo. He's still back in the system. So
Mhm.
it's also good to see what the goalies can do when you have, like we mentioned, like the talent of Arizona and like the Sharks and the Kings. These guys are also out there trying to make a name for themselves. Like we talk about how bad the talent is. Like you're out there, if you go out there and start lighting up a goalie, you might have a chance come training camp because preseason starts Sunday. So this might get you an invite. So if your goalies can hold up to these guys trying to make a name, that can say something.
You mentioned Trent Miner. Are you concerned about that? Because here we are talking about, guys like Foodie and Bukaj and Myers to a lesser extent, but that should be playing better than these other guys that are kind of
Yeah.
maybe like getting their first look. I mean, Miner's been around for a while. He's made it up with the Avs a couple times. And I'm looking over the recap of that. Yeah, I mean, he gave up 5 goals. I feel, is this just, hey, it's early, it would be like an early season start and he's just got to work the kinks out? Or is it he definitely should have played better than that? I don't
Yeah.
know. Like that's why I'm so torn on this thing.
And what you saw out of Eustace the night before, it felt like he was preparing for this game. He was wanting to get out there and put all of that preparation out on the ice. And to me, watching that game, it felt like Miner used that game to get ready. Like it was
Mm,
two different types of preparation for the rookie camp into training camp. It felt like Eustace was he was absolutely ready for the moment, and it felt like Trent Miner was using that moment to get ready. Again, you never know how goalies like to get ready for games or what they need to get going. When it comes to the preseason and these camps, we'll see. But yeah, it felt like two different schools of thought when it came to preparation.
yeah. I mean, the Avs had 3 goalies in 3 games. Obviously, they used them all, and the other 2 were pretty good. Anderson, was in the first game, and then Zig is I always don't know how to pronounce the first syllable. Is Zigalov or Zig
Yeah,
Zig Zigalov or Zigalov? I think it's Zigalov.
I think it. Yeah,
One of those new guys that we just got to get used to for now. But and he seemed to do okay. So you never know. Like you can't make excuses for one and not the other. So I think Minor. I don't think he's not going to use that as an excuse and say I got to play. I can't let up 5 goals, no matter if it's the first game of the season or the last game. So, but all in all, it's a good thing just to get out there, get some games under your belt, and then for some of these guys, this is what, like we said, like prepare for training camp. They can kind of hit the ice running in that regard. So yeah, don't make such a big deal about it for guys that played well or poorly, I would say right now. Still a long way to go. All right, let's hear from Bet Online, and then we will get to Cale Makar at the Vegas Players Tour, whatever they call that thing. Made a comment about Hockey Canada and the really bad situation going on up there, but he made a comment on it. So we will talk about that. But first, betonline.net, your number one source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. You had sent me a message saying like you're terrible at picking football teams, I think you said. Is that?
Yeah.
Well, because you've come over to the Broncos side. It hasn't gone swimmingly for the Broncos so far. But I mean,
the Titans got embarrassed. Auburn got embarrassed. It's not been the greatest weekend for football.
Maybe you should switch to betting. I mean, if you can't pick the team, maybe you can bet on them.
I could bet against the teams I choose. That's
There you
probably
go.
a good idea.
Exactly. Now you're picking up what I'm putting down. Bet Online is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device and learn more about the trends and the action. It's betonline.net, where the game starts. We don't talk too much about Canadian hockey because obviously our team is in the United States, but we all know well and good what hockey means to the country of Canada. And we could go on about everything that's happening with Hockey Canada and what's happened in the past and what's coming out. It's obviously not good. We try to keep this show a little bit on the lighthearted side. And when things like this come up, they should be talked about, and they are talked about. So when it involves, obviously, people on the Avalanche, which, there's a lot of Canadians on the Avs, just like every other hockey team. And when a superstar makes a comment on it, I think it's something that we should discuss. So if you don't know or know the gist of it is, it seems like for years, Hockey Canada was using funds from their youth programs they were kind of funneling fee money and kind of putting that off to the side to pay to come to when there was a sexual assault allegation, they would use that money to come to settlements and come to an agreement. And it's come out recently that that's been happening. And you don't really, like, hockey players don't really want to give comments that are going to like hit the news and hit the media and hit the airwaves and stuff like that. They're very calculated. And you're hearing a lot of players say kind of like beating around the bush, not really like, I'm not hearing it anyway, and they're asking a lot of superstars about like how they feel about this. And even Connor McDavid went on to say something like, well, I'm very proud to have played for Hockey Canada and everything. And he did kind of make like a brief comment on like, yeah, it's bad of what happened. Obviously, Cale Makar was asked about it. Here's his statement. He said, my parents talk about all the fees that they paid Hockey Canada for me to be able to play. And then for all this stuff that came out, I can only imagine the amount of parents that were thinking, oh, that's where my fees went. It's obviously a very tough look. The identity and the culture definitely needs to be changed. It's just that time. That's what a lot of people, like a lot of pundits, a lot of people who do podcasts and, journalists are saying that stuff. You haven't heard that really from a marquee player like Cale Makar. And for him to come out and say, hockey, if you don't know, is a very expensive sport.
Yep.
From the gear to the travel to the hotels, like you pay a lot of money to play hockey, no matter what age group you're in. And when you're playing in Canada and for Hockey Canada, like, yeah, you're paying fees. And I love that he's having conversation with his it's not, and you forget about that. It's not just the players. I feel parents. If you
Yeah.
were a parent and you knew like the money that I'm paying for my kid to play is being put into like a nest egg in case there's a sexual assault allegation, man, like you'd be looking back thinking like, what's going on here? So I really love the fact that everybody turns to superstars for a lot of like deep rooted issues, most of the time in sports, sometimes in politics. They want to get athletes take on that for whatever reason. And when they say something that is like at the forefront and not what he said is not so like deep. It's very like basic.
Yeah.
It's like, look, this is what's happening. It's wrong. It needs to be changed. So I applaud him for saying that and not kind of just giving the canned answer that a lot of hockey players are doing.
And I agree with Cale Makar 100% with what he says because I mean, good grief, it's 2022 and we're now just having the conversation about how we should be treating people, whether it comes to race in the game of hockey, like how we handle women's hockey, the Chicago Blackhawks situation, and then you hear about all these allegations coming out of Hockey Canada and just like the quote unquote locker room culture. I mean, it's time for a change.
Mm,
I mean, from the bottom to the top when it comes to mentality and how you carry yourself as a hockey player. You mentioned like it's not a cheap sport to play. It's not one of those it's not an ease of access sport to play. Like if you love it, you're going to go through it. And you hear all these stories about what everybody grew up with in the locker rooms and all the guys being guys. Well,
mm.
if it's to this point where you're having to have, like, a nest egg to handle guys being guys, I think there's a problem here.
Right.
And for everybody to kinda, like, turn a blind eye, just for the sake of the good old hockey game, to steal a quote from Stompin' Tom Connors, um, it's not the good old hockey game if this is part of it. Um, I'm glad Cale Makar, I mean, he's our wonderful child. He's everybody wants to make him like our good little boy, our cookie eating defenseman that sits on the bench and like super wholesome. And then like you hear that coming from him, and then you hear Connor McDavid just towing the company line. I love playing for Hockey Canada. The same like Patrick Kane kind of like very blanket canned answer. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad, and I hope this gets a little bit more traction, and I hope it gets a little bit more eyeballs on it because it's been a problem long enough, and we've kind of just like turned a blind eye and just been like, ah, that's hockey for you. No,
Yeah.
I'm getting really sick of that, and it's repulsing me. And maybe Cale Makar could be the voice that kind of turns the narrative on this.
And I think because it is Cale Makar, like you were kind of saying, because he's a guy that just seems like so like laid back and calm and doesn't want to say things. I'm not saying he doesn't. He just like comes across as the guy who's just, I just want to go to work. I just want to do my job. I want to do it awesomely, and just go home and collect my paycheck.
Yep,
Um, you know, you would expect guys like maybe like Nazem Kadri to come out
yep.
and say something like that, who is, he's got no filter. He doesn't care. So I think there's a little bit of an added like, oh, like ears perking up that Cale Makar has
Yeah.
said something to this effect. So interesting. So they're in a world of what right now with that organization. For
Good.
some reason, I just feel like there's more coming out eventually of what they've been doing or not doing. So he's definitely not wrong. There needs to be massive change there, and there probably will be. I would hope at some point. And you're right. Maybe he even said that he's like, I'll help them out wherever they need help. So
We need
maybe
more Cale Makars in this world.
I was gonna say maybe this is like Cale Makar like taking on more responsibility than just playing the game of hockey. Maybe doing some back end stuff like behind the scenes stuff. So we shall see. All right. Final thing to get to. We know that our brand new Evan Rodrigues will be wearing number 9, and we know that Alexander Georgiev will be wearing number 40. Both numbers that they wore on their previous teams, they will continue wearing those for the Avalanche. And the number 9 is the one that everybody is kind of looking at, and they were wondering. I was wondering anyway if he was going to keep that. And I didn't even really realize that he wore a different number when he played for Buffalo. Was it 72 or something like that?
Yeah,
I think it was 72, 71 or 72. I don't know.
yeah, it
But
was something.
so maybe some people thought he'd go back to that, but he's going to wear number 9. I don't think has anybody worn more 9?
Now don't quote me on this. I want to say Dylan Sakura did.
Because I feel like it was something like that.
Yeah, I
Like,
feel
so
like it
it
was
wasn't
just
like
like
a
a call
marquee
up.
player.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very well could be. But he will be the biggest name to wear number 9 since obviously Matt Duchene. So I think it's a good thing. Maybe it's another step in the healing process for some Avalanche fans that haven't got. Kyle's pointing to himself if you're listening in your car. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just another step, and we can put the Matt Duchene thing to bed. Maybe a little bit more because now his number is officially going to be off the market.
Yeah, and like for those longtime OG Avalanche fans, like it just kind of feels right. Like we got the cup. We did everything we want. Like
Yeah,
we
why is
put
that
all
still? Is that still bothering you? Like
that's
we did.
still bought like and then when you see that number on the back of the jersey, after all this time, it still bothers you.
Hmm.
Like it shouldn't. We have the cup. We're the best team in the league. But why does Evan Rodrigues saying, "I want to play for the Avalanche wearing number 9," and then I rattle off a tweet saying, "Make take this number back." Like
Yeah.
it's everybody's first reaction. So I would love for Erod to come in here and just I mean, he could have an average season as long as he loves the Avalanche back. Is we could just it's one more thing to, you know, put behind us. Like
So
this is
yeah.
you could finally move forward because the Duchesne thing really hurt and it hurt Avalanche fans because we were in a low spot and then about to be in a really low spot. And we felt like the guy that we were putting on posters and remember that radioactive music video, the
Hmm.
Imagine Dragons thing that we
Hmm.
had him sing? Oh, that was a trip. Um, but for some reason, it still hurts. We've had players come and go. I mean, we had Jerome McGinley, and we never hear that name anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's always Duchesne, 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 and it feels like this is finally our chance of getting over that, replacing that number, and it being somebody else's.
I still think for some people, I think two things still need to happen. I think Evan Rodrigues needs to have a good season
Hmm.
wearing that number, and he needs to stay longer than 1 year. I mean, if he just wears that thing for 1 year, has a so-so year, and he's gone for whatever reason, people are not. They're still gonna be like, nope. That now it's gonna be like that number is cursed. It's
But
gonna be
then
one of
you
those.
still have a stopgap in between both because you're like, you remember that one terrible season that Erod had, and you don't have to talk about Duchesne anymore because there's somebody else on that number.
Yeah, but
Like
then
even
you're combining those two things now. You are saying like, remember that bad season that he had because he wore number 9, which was Matt Duchene's number, and Matt Duchene is forever going to sully that number. And
did Paul
even
Correa wear that jersey number?
when he came here, Korea, I'm almost certain we're number 9. Yeah, yeah, I'm almost certain he did.
What it would
But
be
that was
cursed.
before. That was before.
It's still
Well, that's
cursed.
true. That's true. It's
He
yeah,
did not
yeah.
that did not pan out.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. But I think it's just a fun thing to the Matt Duchene saga just continues. And
We have no reason.
in a way, I think it always will, man. I do. I even if Rodrigues goes off for Nazem Kadri like numbers and signs a 5-year deal after this, like it's never gonna go away. I think that is attached to the Colorado Avalanche uh in perpetuity, maybe. Like I don't think that's
I don't know.
ever going to end.
Watch him
Um,
get 30-30 in the season with 60 points and then go sign
Yeah.
somewhere else, and
Yeah.
everybody talks about that one season of Erod.
Yes. Yeah. And then if you've been on social media and you saw the Georgiev helmet that he's wearing, or the mask that he's wearing, like, this is odd because y'all know, if you listen to the show, how we feel about the goalie situation for the Avs. I'm kind of like wait and see. Kyle is all about this right now. And it's kind of switched for at least the helmet. I am loving this helmet that he has. It's a little bit like, I mean, it's silver. It's like, at least in the images, it's like shiny. It's very like minimalistic, but it seems very detailed at the same time. And that's very odd to say, but go look at it because it's just made up. It's almost like one of those like dot matrix type of things. Um, I think it's pretty cool looking. I'm interested to see how it's going to look with the rest of the uniform because there's really nothing on the uniform that's silver. But it's definitely something that stands out. You don't like it. Why not?
Chris, I grew up in the era of Cujo, and you had all those like really cool 90s and 2000s goalie masks.
Mhm.
And then I see this one and I'm like, it looks like a submarine, like the wall of a submarine. Or it's like it's just it,
I think it's
what
cool, man. I don't know
like
why.
you don't see the cool goalie mask as much anymore. And like it used to be like the cool thing. Like it was one of the things when I was like a little kid getting like it was like I say little kid, but like in 98, 99,
Mhm.
getting a coloring book, the coolest game on earth, and you could color all of the goalie masks and all of the hockey jerseys. Like it was 30 pages of both, and you got to color them all.
Yeah.
And like mask you could look forward to, and like you see a mask and you know exactly who that is. Those days are long gone, and you see this now, and it's just like, ugh,
See, I feel I kind of disagree with that, and this is why. I kind of feel like goalie masks have just gotten too busy.
yeah,
Just too many graphics going on, too many colors going on. They're cool pieces of art, but they're just too busy.
yeah.
And this is just simple. And I like that. He's kind of taking a step back from like just if you haven't seen it, like I'm saying, like it's minimalistic, but it's like very detailed because it's just that one color. It's just that one color in black. Everything is like the Avalanche logo is in black, and like the small dots are all in black, and that is it. I think that's why I like it so much. It's just because it's not just let's just throw as many colors as possible on this thing.
I think it trips me up because it makes me think of the Stadium Series game that we had against the Kings and their shiny buckets,
Right.
and
So,
I got that weird little vibe of that.
all right, and that's kind of where I was gearing this was helmets for the players.
Mhm.
Why don't we have more like dynamic helmets for teams instead of just one color with the logo and now ads
Didn't
on it? But
didn't Vancouver in the 90s have like that V on their jersey on their like the yellow and red bucket?
it doesn't stand out to me. Maybe they did, but I mean, I remember that because I actually like that uniform. But I don't remember it. But like for because you mentioned the Kings with the
Mhm.
silver helmets, like the Avalanche for that game what was it?
The
Not the military one, the
y
Air Force.
yeah,
Like
Air Force, yeah.
their helmet was it had the A on one side and
Yeah.
then the number on the other. Like, why can't they do that more? Do have a designed helmet for your everyday uniform. Like we have them in the NFL. Those are
They
those are crazy helmets, and they have decals and colors and stuff. I just like do that. I think that's got to be the next step in the uniform is make the helmet dynamic, not just a team color with the logo.
Vegas tried to do the C-3PO helmets,
Those are
with
terrible.
their alternate.
Like
They're not great.
not everyone's going to be a home run. And
Yeah.
that's why I like that. Like I think that would be cool to see what each team comes up with, and then we can have this conversation about how Vegas has the worst one because you know that they'll come up with the worst one.
The Avs should come out to the ice in that same color blue, but that weird plastic we had in the 90s that we made our telephones and, like, our computers out of, that
Yeah.
see-through plastic, Just have that as their bucket. It's different.
That would be cool. That'd be cool. So I don't know, like I always see these like graphic designers like on their websites come up with alternative ones for NFL teams, which are
Yeah.
really cool. Or I saw one guy do all 32 NFL teams as like Star Wars helmets.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like I want to see some for the NHL. I think the NHL could come up with some really, really cool looking helmets if they let somebody design them.
Helmet stickers. You get a goal, you get a sticker.
Oh, like college style.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
you,
that
you
would
got,
be super cool.
but it would just be goals then, or what? Because
Yeah, I mean, you could see him flying down the ice. You're like, how many goals does he have? You're immediately Googling that guy. Like
see,
that
but
guy's
if
like, he'll look like Georgiev's mask.
yeah, all these little like dots and stuff, like yeah. But I mean, if you're someone like Sam Gerard, you're gonna have
Step it up.
3 dots on your helmet.
Step it up.
I like the see. This is conversations that we need to have, man. I like that a lot. So I don't know. Maybe it'll likely not happen for a while, but there's going to be a
It's
new
true.
company in town to make the jerseys. Maybe they can pitch to them. Let's do something with the helmets too.
We need to be
It'd be fun to see.
co-commissioners of the league.
I think so. I think it's about time. Enough messing around. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for today. I made it through. I'm kind of proud of myself right now. So I think I'm only going to feel better tomorrow. And if that is the case, I think we're going to be doing a crossover with Seth from Locked On Minnesota Wild. So stay tuned for that. We got a handful of crossovers to kind of get ready for the season coming up. So if all goes well tomorrow, I think it's going to be Seth from Locked On Wild. Until then, we'll see everybody later. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.